Hi everybody, it's Michael Buckley and this is my friend Steph. Hey Steph!
Hey Michael Buckley!
So we're doing a video and there might be loud noise because there's people like in the other room being rollicking, but we've never been on camera together.
We haven't.
No. So for people who don't know you, tell people about your YouTube channel.
I'm ELLO STEPH online, ELLO Steph, and I talk about gay things, I talk about taboo things, I'm very educational. That's about it.
That's about it. So on this channel I've been talking about like my own personal struggles, and so I was kind of like asking all my YouTube friends to make videos with me and kind of talk about what has been your biggest obstacles in life and how you've overcome them. I know. So, what is it? Tell us everything.
I feel like we're gonna get real depressed.
Yeah, no.
Great.
No.
Well, when I was 18, my mom passed away unexpectedly.
I'm sorry.
It's not okay, but it's, you know, it is what it is.
You know, my mother's dead too. So it's like Dead Mothers Club. Whenever you meet a friend who's got a Dead Mothers Club.
It's like, hey girl! But not, it's like, hey girl.
Hey girl, Dead Moms Club. So,
yeah.
Your mother passed away at 18.
Yeah, like, but it was, like, unexpected. You know how some people have, like, the parent pass away, and it's like, not that it's better, but it's like cancer. So it's like, we saw it coming, but it was literally one day, like, oh, my mom's not feeling well, she's gonna go to the hospital. Then, like, that night, hey, we're going to ICU because there's a 50% chance your mom's not gonna be here the next day. So it was kind of just like, what? Yeah, so that was definitely my biggest obstacle that I've ever overcome.
And how at the time did you feel versus how do you feel about it today?
I was a wreck. I was a very shocked wreck. Our entire family, like, fell apart because, like, even when my mom was alive, we always said how it was me, my dad, and my sister were puzzle pieces, and my mom was the glue.
Yeah.
And then
how old was your mother?
She was 54.
So young, so young, so young.
Yeah. And she did not look 54 at all.
Yeah.
My mom was hot.
So now, how are you okay? Or did you just accept it? Or what was your mourning, grieving process like?
The way I describe losing a parent, it's like always having a huge rock. And when you first get the huge rock, you only focus on, oh my god, this is so heavy, and you don't stop thinking about the rock. But eventually you get stronger, you're able to carry the rock, you're able to then run with the rock, and there's some days where you're running along and you forget the rock is there, but you know it's there. And then some days it feels a little heavier, some days you don't feel it at all, but you know it's always there.
If your mom was here right now and she was watching your like career and your life, what would you hope that she would say about you? What would you hope for her? What would you hope for?
I know my mom would be very, very proud because growing up, believe it or not, I was kind of a black sheep. I was always sneaking out. I never did like drugs or like got in a gang or anything, but I was like going to gay clubs and like hanging out with a lot of older people and just, you know, always worrying my parents and was very distant. And I was like a really like bitchy kid, like the typical teen, like, I hate you, get out of my life. Yeah. But I feel like my mom would be very proud of who I am today because the older I get, the more and more everyone, like friends, family, are like, wow, you're just like Marcy. Like, whenever I see my dad now, because this is the first time my dad and I are going like months at a time without seeing each other because I live on the other side of the country where he'll see me and then he'll start crying because he's like, you look just like her.
Oh my god. So if somebody's watching and they've lost a parent, they've lost a loved one, what do you think is your best advice to offer somebody?
You know that it's different for everyone, and I think the biggest thing to remember is everyone's like, will it get better? And I don't want to lie and say yes. It never gets better.
It's always sad.
It gets easier.
It gets easier. It's always
my biggest
sad.
advice.
It's funny too because when a parent dies too, or a loved one, it's almost like for that first year, everyone's asking, "How are you?" and you feel so loved and supported. And everyone always says the second year is almost the worst because it's like you're still sad and no one else is mentioning your mother, and you're like,
because everyone's like, it's a taboo topic.
The first Thanksgiving, the first Christmas, you're like, "Oh, Marcy, Marcy," and then 2 years later, you're like, why aren't you asking about her? Because I'm still thinking about her.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So yeah, so the second year is the toughest, but yeah. And the thing is about a death of a loved one, it's like it gets easier, it gets better, it gets whatever. You get used to it. Like that's it. You just
surprisingly enough, I think it's the happy moments that make me more sad. Yeah. Because, you know, whenever something bad happens or it's like a sad time, I think like, yeah, it's sad, but then I remember one day when I was in college, like I got really great news, and like even though like almost 2 years went by, out of instinct I grabbed my phone and dialed my mom's number, and then I just remember like I was in the middle of the student union and I just like dropped my phone and like people were walking by, but I didn't see them and I just started crying.
Not to be dramatic, but that's the exact same thing. Like if anything ever has wonderful happened to me, my first thought is always, oh my god, this is wonderful. My second thought is always, oh my god, I'm so sad my mother's not alive to see this. So again, it's like you learn to accept it. It is, you know,
it makes everything harder. Like dating is harder because like I love my dad. My dad's great. Papa Frosh is great, but he's very like Jewish dad, like distant, like my dad never had the sex talk. My dad probably in his mind I'm a virgin still. Sorry.
Aren't you?
But yeah, my mom, like it hurts my heart that I'm like my mom's never gonna see a girl I'm dating. My mom's not gonna be there to, you know, at my wedding. Like my dad can't help me pick a dress.
Right, right. And it's one of those things too, it's like you have to realize you're sad for the rest of your life about this. It's like there's nothing, you can go to therapy, you could have a friend talk to you, and it does get different or easier or whatever, but there's certain things in your life that happen and it's like you realize I am going to be sad for the rest of my life about this. And I get out of bed, I shower, I make good choices, I live, but I will for the rest of my life be sad that my mother has passed away.
And I feel like an asshole sometimes, but I'm sure you might feel the same way, but one of like my biggest peeves after my mom passed away was when like a friend or an acquaintance would be like, I know how you feel, like my grandma who I met twice died 5 years ago. I know exactly how you feel. I'm like,
this is the most important person in my life.
Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah. I know, it's weird too when someone is like grieving, like, what do I say? I'm like, well, that's not what you should say.
Not that.
I feel like there's something, I read a book once about empathy and compassion, or the difference between that whenever someone tells you a terrible story, like, oh, I was raped, I was mugged, my mother's dead, and you're like, oh, my mom too, or I did this, and it's like, that's, when you're almost like, you just need someone to hug you and be like, I love you, I'm so sorry.
It's like, I don't want to have a competition.
Versus like, oh, I know what you're going through. I'm like, okay.
Like, I don't want to hear that. I want to be hugged. I want to be comforted.
I know. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I love you so much.
I love you.
Check out Steph's links below. Struggles is reals! Because you're always going through it. That's the thing I realized. The older you get too, it's like, no matter whatever point you're at in your life, you're always going through it, right?
Yep.
All right, love you.
Love you.
Dead Moms Club.